We just got back from the food bank, and let me tell you, this was one of the coolest hauls ever, and I'll get to that later in this video. But first, I just want to say that I am trying to destigmatize using food banks for whatever reason in life, whether it is an income loss, unexpected bill, cost of living rising. Anyone can use a food bank for any reason, and you don't have to feel guilty about it because food banks are here for you. While I unpack this food, I kind of want to break down an interesting thing that happened, and I think that we should just talk about it, and I want to hear everybody else's opinions if you had something similar happen in your life. But recently, my in-laws found out that we had been using a food bank, and they felt really bad about it. And I just want to highlight how it is so interesting across generations of the implication of using a food bank and why that makes people feel uncomfortable. Maybe they feel guilty. It just is almost like a taboo topic. Of course, I have a lot of theories on why certain people might get uncomfortable when you know somebody that's like, oh yeah, I use a food bank. I think the big elephant in the room that we need to address is the implicit bias that a lot of people have about people who are struggling, right? You have this whole concept of, oh, if they're struggling, they must have done something to deserve to struggle. And this is why they're in this position. And of course, that's not always the case. Sometimes life happens and everything hits the fan and you just have to pivot and adapt. And I think we often, if we're in a place of privilege, we often are just insulated from things not going right all the time because we're used to a certain level of stability. I think the other aspect that often goes hand in hand with the whole you deserve to be struggling because you did something is the fact that somehow somebody who comes from a place of privilege could almost do better and think that it's not as challenging because of this idea that I somehow can figure it out and you can't. In order to rationalize, I think, that kind of thinking, you would have to admit to yourself that there is systemic issues within any country, of any system, of whatever, and that you somehow are on the side that you're benefiting from the system and other people aren't. And that can be really, really hard to meet head on because I guess people, like, it makes people feel bad. I'm assuming that's what it is. I would love to hear everybody else's input on this because I think that this is a conversation that has always been occurring, but it's just whoever has the mic and speaks the loudest that somehow everybody else just kind of like goes along with it. And I think we need to hear other perspectives and other sides. And I would just love to hear, what are your thoughts on this conversation? I think it also just assigns a moral value that doesn't necessarily need to be there, that somehow there are righteous people that are going to succeed, and then there are just unrighteous people who don't get anything. And if you need help, if you need quote handouts, then there's something morally wrong with you and your worthiness as a person. Which, of course, this is completely untrue. Every human being has innate worth and has the potential to change and to grow and should be allowed to thrive. But somehow the conversation keeps getting turned back into only certain people get to deserve to do that. And that is, I think, gets the heart of the problem. Only certain people can, and we're going to dictate who those people are. The main book that comes to mind that I try to read every Christmas Eve is A Christmas Carol, when Scrooge is met with the men that are going around collecting donations for the poor and, you know, the people that are in unfortunate circumstances. And Scrooge's whole response is they should just be able to get there. And the men that are collecting the donations are kind of looking at him like they can't. So I guess ultimately my question is, do people feel bad because they feel guilty that they're not struggling? Or do they feel bad because it confronts something inside of them, of their own view of people that are struggling, people that are living in poverty, and it makes them uncomfortable because they actually have to look at a human face at the end of the day and recognize that their opinions actually directly impact people and how they vote impacts people. Like, what do you really think it is? Why is it so uncomfortable and taboo? Did any of you guys have this similar experience of telling people that you go to food banks and people feel bad for you? Or do you keep it hush hush and you don't talk about it because you don't want to deal with anybody else's emotional response? I would be very curious. So please leave all of your comments. I would like to hear about what you think of this conversation and if there's anything that I left out. Because again, I'm a mom and oftentimes I am running on fumes and I can't necessarily cover everything that's in my head, but it's just I have these short bursts of thought and I want to put that out there and see anybody else's take on what I'm saying or what I'm even leaving out too. Using the food bank has just been a fantastic resource for my family. And I'm curious to hear about what you guys got this month and how you're cooking it. We ended up getting 2 packages of chicken thighs. And I haven't really cooked chicken thighs before. I know there's some stereotypical recipes. I think it's like the teriyaki glaze one. But if anybody else has any other suggestions on how they like to do it, especially with fall coming up, I'm really excited to whip out my crock pot again and get some nice soups and stews and comfort meals going because I have so much of this meat to eat up. I also received a comment on my first food bank video that I ever did, talking about how it's a little problematic for using the word haul and how that can kind of lead this into more of like a trendy thing than it just being a resource to help people and more of the work of like destigmatizing the use. So if anybody has a recommendation of what else to call it, I am all ears. It's just that seemed to be the word haul, like food bank haul seemed to come up a lot on like YouTube search. And I just want to make sure that whatever word that I use instead, it still gets my content out there because I want to reach people that are just feeling really down about life and not feeling represented in the world, especially when you go online. It's all these people that, in my opinion, are cosplaying life. It's not real. And for people that just need real people who are living real lives that have real constraints in life and struggles, I just want my content to be out there and so people feel less alone. So recommendations for different words, different phrases.